The history of the Vikings. Warriors, explorers, and legends. One of the most fascinating and yet mysterious cultures in history. Their name evokes images of fierce warriors, mighty ships, and distant lands. However, the Vikings were far more than just the notorious raids that brought them onto the medieval European stage. The history of the Vikings is a complex interplay of adventurous exploration, cultural exchange, warfare, and a deep belief in gods and legends. This documentary takes you through the most significant epochs and aspects of the Viking Age, exploring both historical facts and the myths and legends passed down through the centuries. The beginnings of the Viking Age. The Viking Age began in 793 with the famous raid on the Lindisfarne monastery on the northeast coast of England. This attack marked the start of an era that would last for over 300 years. But who were these people, who entered the history books as wild warriors? The Vikings hailed from the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. They were farmers, craftsmen, traders, and above all, seafarers. Their homeland was the harsh landscape of Scandinavia, and their ships, the so-called longships, made them the best sailors of their time. The Vikings were not just raiders, they were also daring explorers. They sailed as far as North America, nearly 500 years before Columbus, leaving traces in many parts of Europe, Asia, and even North Africa. Raids and expansion. The Vikings are primarily known for their raids. Their ships allowed them to strike swiftly and unexpectedly in faraway regions. Lindisfarne was just the beginning. In the following decades, the Vikings raided the coasts of England, Ireland, Scotland, and the Frankish Empire. However, their expansion was not limited to plundering. The Vikings settled in many of the areas they conquered, founding permanent settlements. In northern England, they established the Kingdom of York, and in Ireland and Scotland, the settlements of Dublin and Largs. Particularly noteworthy was their conquest of what is now France, where in the 9th century, the Vikings founded the Duchy of Normandy, which would later play a significant role in European history. The Vikings were not just marauding warriors, but also traders and settlers. Through their trade routes, which stretched from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, they brought not only goods, but also cultural exchanges with other peoples. Viking society. Behind the martial image of the Vikings was a highly developed society. The Vikings lived in a tribal society, ruled by chieftains and kings. Their social structure was hierarchical, but also offered opportunities for those who distinguished themselves through bravery and skill. Free men and women had legal rights, while slaves, called thralls, formed the lowest social class. A key feature of Viking society was the Thing, an assembly where legal disputes were settled and political decisions were made. These gatherings were early forms of democratic participation, where every free man had the right to voice his opinion. Women in Viking society played an important role. While they were often responsible for household duties and agriculture, they also had the right to own property and seek a divorce, which at the time was unimaginable in many parts of Europe. Viking religion, gods, myths, and legends. The religion of the Vikings was a polytheistic belief system populated by many gods and beings. The main deities of the Vikings were Odin, the Allfather, and his sons Thor and Balder. Odin, the god of wisdom, war, and death, was the most powerful of the gods. Thor, the god of thunder, symbolized strength and protection for humanity, while Balder was known as the radiant god of light and beauty. A central element of Norse mythology was the concept of Asgard, the home of the gods, and Midgard, the world of humans, which were connected by the world tree, Yggdrasil. The end of the world, known as Ragnarok, was a key theme in Norse mythology. It prophesied the death of many gods and the destruction of the world, followed by its rebirth. The Vikings also had a deep belief in Valhalla, the Hall of the Fallen Warriors. Those who died in battle were believed to be received by Odin in Valhalla, where they would be prepared for the final battle against the forces of chaos during Ragnarok. Viking legends. The stories and sagas of the Vikings were passed down from generation to generation and remain of great importance to Nordic culture today. The most famous of these tales are found in the Edda, a collection of poems and stories about the Norse gods and heroes. One of the best-known figures in these legends is the hero Sigurd, who slayed the dragon Fafnir and secured the memory of the dragon's hoard. Sigurd is depicted in the Volsunga saga as a kind of Norse Beowulf, embodying the archetype of the brave warrior who battles superhuman foes. Another legendary figure is Ragnar Lodbrok, a famous Viking king. Ragnar is celebrated as the epitome of the Viking hero, a man of unyielding courage and great wisdom, who had many adventures and entered history as a feared ruler. The end of the Viking Age. By the 11th century, the Viking Age began to wane. The Christianization of Scandinavia led to a slow transformation of society. The Vikings ceased being raiding warriors and became more involved in farming and trade. In England, the end of Viking rule came in 1066 with the Battle of Hastings and the Norman conquest. Nevertheless, the Vikings left an indelible mark on history. Their influence on culture, politics, and daily life in Europe and beyond is still felt today, whether through language, art, or the geographical traces they left behind. The legacy of the Vikings. The Vikings were much more than just warriors and raiders. They were explorers, traders, and legends who made deep cultural impacts both in their homeland and far beyond. Their mythology, sagas, and adventures continue to captivate and inspire us today. The Viking Age may be over, but the stories and legacy of this fascinating people live on. In the Nordic countries, in literature, and in our imagination. As we journey through the echoes of Viking history, we uncover not just tales of conquest and exploration, but the spirit of a people who shaped the course of nations. Their legacy endures in our language, our culture, and the stories we tell. Thank you for joining me on this voyage into the past. If you enjoyed this exploration of Viking history, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more fascinating journeys into the stories that shaped our world. Until next time, remember, history is alive, and it's waiting for us to discover it.